Hi, it's Anthony Magnabosco, and I'm 99% sure that you're watching Atheist Edge.
What is God afraid women will teach men?
So I asked these guys to show this and kind of be here so we can have a discussion about the video. Brings up a lot of interesting questions. It's an approach that we've seen before, but it's it just kind of took it to a level I haven't seen before. So I was very impressed with it. But I will throw one thing out there that kind of bugs me when we have this kind of approach, and it's that these things exist whether a God exists or not. You know, these things, these horrors are out there. So could we also maybe make a second part to this, or say, well, here's why it makes sense in an evolutionary world? Sure. I don't think I'm saying this very well, but it's like, you know, we're making a great case that, hey, you say you've got this loving God, and here are all these horrors that are happening, you know, in our world. But you know, but how do we explain that they're happening, because they most definitely are?
Well, here's what I think is important, and first of all, I want to give all the credit in the world to Jim, who had to sort through all those videos and photos, and I don't know how I made it through with his sanity intact, because that's
when he first proposed to do this, he said, okay, we're going to do a thing. You guys just read this. You guys just sort of change up and come over to the microphone and read these things. Here are some ideas I have. But if you think of more stuff, you're kind of going to get in the flow of it and just sort of expound on what you have. Just trust me. I know what this is going to look like when I'm done. I have this vision. And I got to say, when we started, we weren't looking at these images. We were just talking and sort of sharing thoughts out loud. But it's what Chris said. I mean, the vision for putting this together at the end was really phenomenal. That's pretty well done. I gotta say.
It took me to a very dark place for a while.
As far as Randy's question, you know, why do we even make a video like this?
That was not my question.
I'm expanding it a little bit. Yeah. But the reason we want to talk about this, and the reason we take this approach, is because, you know, the people in this room, those of us on the channel who do other stuff in the atheist community and who engage with believers on a regular basis, a lot of times we deal in logical, rational arguments. We talk in syllogisms, we root out fallacies, we have these very high-minded philosophical arguments, and those are all well and good, but that is appeals to a very specific subset of Christians. Yeah. You know, if you go to church on Sunday, Granny on the edge of the pew, she isn't going to have any kind of clue what you're talking about most of the time, and she doesn't care. She probably thinks that tu quoque is like a dish you might get served at this restaurant. And the sad thing is, and we kind of chuckle at that because we have our own way of going about things, but she still votes. And she still works to influence public policy, and we need to find a way to reach her in some way. And that's where the problem of suffering comes in. Because
she voted in Louisiana, she voted for a Democrat.
Oh, you can only hope. Right. But yeah, the people who don't know all the logical arguments, don't know how to form a coherent syllogism and whatnot, they still know pain and suffering. They've experienced that firsthand, right? They've been sick, they've had friends and family members who died. Hopefully not in some of those ways, those are horrible, but they know people who may have died before their time or experienced some sort of long lingering illness, and they will understand that better than they might understand some other arguments.
For me, the themes here sort of approach the discussion on two levels. The first is, we are, to a degree, we are actively trying to shake people's dogma, to break through closed thinking and to consider the possibility that they're wrong. And the problem of evil is one of the clearest problems that a thinking person who believes in a loving God has to confront, and sometimes on a daily basis. No less a figure than Bart Ehrman started down the path of disbelief, primarily, if you read his books, primarily because of the problem of evil. He's even written a book about it. And if that cognitive dissonance can influence a mind like Bart Ehrman's, who came out of a Bible college. I mean, he was a fundamentalist just like I was, and if it could have pulled him out of that and into a deeper sort of worldview, then I think that a similar kind of observation could achieve that. And this video, I think, is excellent in how it approaches the question. My hope for the video was, and we had it in a lot of places on Facebook, in a lot of different places, but my hope for the video was that this would allow people like us who are non-believers and who've thought about this deeply and have reached very different conclusions than the consensus, than the mainstream, to share the video with family members and then have the conversation over dinner. This is why I reject what you believe. This is the reason why I am so compelled to deny these claims that you make. And so that brings me to the second part of the argument. We are told by Christians that not only is there a God, right, but that God is a God of love, and that the plan of salvation is a beautiful plan, and that Christianity is good for the world, and that suffering is God's plan for us. And the beginning couple of slides of the video talk about how believers rationalize suffering, and as a negation of the idea that if a biblical God exists, that God is a loving deity. This is a very good way of sort of approaching that built-in mental defense mechanism when you confront a Christian. The reply that you get is, no, my God is a God of love. My Jesus is the Prince of Peace. And my God doesn't want suffering anywhere. And so, again, we're back to this challenging the narrative and staking out a claim for the truth of the negation of that narrative. And in its wake, both of these two items really only can leave cognitive dissonance in the minds of the people who are consuming the message. And so the goal, just like me and I bet everybody in here, I'm sorry, I feel like I'm pontificating now. Every single person almost who is an atheist in America wasn't born that way. They became that way. And so the cognitive dissonance that led us to start asking those questions, this is a way to go plant that similar sort of cognitive dissonance in the mind of everybody that we care about and want to influence, and to get them to think deeply about their own conclusions. And my own mother, who was a Christian, I love her to death.
I was hoping you were going to bring this up.
Yeah, my own mother sent me a text message and she said, "Hey, I watched your video twice. I don't know what to say about it. You make some really good points. I'm not sure I want to argue about it."
Ooh.
Yeah.
But tell them it was the first time in 30 years that...
This is the first time in 30 years that I really have ever thought that maybe I finally chipped away at the armor. Like I finally struck a chord that could lead my mother to what I think is a better, more rational conclusion.
That's huge.
It is huge. And that's why I love this video. The Skeptical Texans sort of participated in the project here. We funded a Facebook ad campaign. We paid for it on our own wall and got 3,000 or 4,000 hits. You go look at our Facebook page and the rabid anti-atheist scream on there after this video. But I answered every single person. I sent a reply back to every single person.
Now, Owen, you and Rex, you go into churches.
We do.
And you talk with people in Sunday school classes. How many people there you think are well into apologetics and the logical side? Yeah, so there's there's a lot more people. We have almost the niche hobby side of the argument.
Yeah.
And there's a lot more people out there that can be reached with other more.
Yeah, there's a lot more feel-good Christians. It's all about, when I go to church on Sunday, I walk away feeling good. They don't want to put any more thought to it than that.
Yeah.
That gives me a good idea, Owen. I haven't talked to my mom in 2 years because of some of this stuff, and I'm thinking about making a flash drive and sending her a Christmas present.
Yeah, that'll really help.
The good news for me, my story's out there, and I've told it a bunch of times. I'm happy to tell it again. That's not necessarily what we're here, but both my mother and my father are devout, believing Christians. I managed to, right before I left for college, so it was the summer before my senior year of high school, I had this realization. The cognitive dissonance had been in my head for several years, and I realized, I woke up one morning and I'm like, today I'm not a Christian. It was the summer, and I realized that today I can no longer use the word Christian to describe myself. I still believed in God. That took another probably 2 months. The burden that brought onto my family was extreme, but and I still kind of have an estranged relationship with my dad, though we're trying. My mother is a saint. If such a thing can exist in a secular context, my mother is a saint. She made it all the way through my childhood without strangling me, which makes her a really good person. I probably deserve it.
Wonderful thing.
Right. My mother's an amazing person, but this tension has still always been there, and I can recommend books to read. I've given her a copy of Misquoting Jesus. I would never give her a copy of The God Delusion because it's just too rabid. But, I've given her books to read, and we've talked about stuff sometimes, and we'll go out and walk the dogs when she's up here. She lives in Houston. When she's up here visiting, we'll go out and walk the dogs, and I'll ask her questions. She'll bring stuff up, and I'll talk about the traditional understanding of who wrote the Gospels and how it couldn't be true, and how you start with the earliest one and you look at the evolving myth over time. Pretty basic stuff for anybody who's read more than 3 books by Bart Ehrman. They've already figured this stuff out. My mother, not ever having done that, she said to me probably 3 years ago, nothing in the world makes any sense except in the light of the Gospels. And I don't know how you have any conversation with that person without breaking through the barrier, right? Without breaking through this mental block.
She may have in her mind already where she's going after she dies.
She certainly does.
She does not want to lose.
Didn't want to let it go.
That might be the bottom line.
Well, that's the biggest.
They have something that's going to happen to them after they die, and they do not want to lose it.
They don't want to let it go.
That's the biggest discussions I have about, why do you want to take this away from me?
Right.
Why do you want to take this, in my book, fantasy away from me? Because I'm going to a great place.
Yeah.
I'm not taking anything away from you. I'm discussing.
The answer is that your Christian worldview is harming you and harming others. And you could have a better, more fulfilling, fuller, more enriching, more beautiful life with more love in it if you could let that go and embrace the fact that you don't get another chance at this.
Yes.
Once the lights go out, they're out. Right? Sitting in darkness through the end of time now.
This is your time to do something about it.
Right.
If you don't, it's gone.
Yeah. And I guess so this gets back to a skeptical Texans theme. Christianity is not just false. In my opinion, it's also harmful. And I haven't had a humble opinion since the 2nd grade. So my never humble opinion is that Christianity is hurting us. It's even killing us.
Religion in general.
Yeah.
And even if it was more or less harmless, even if it's harmless, you're still spreading a lie.
Right.
And in my book, that simple fact is a harm.
Embrace the truth, look at the data, look at the science, ask the deep philosophical questions, and then admit to yourself that your anti-science, fundamentalist, young earth thinking is hurting the world. And you're not just practicing it by yourself, you're encouraging everybody else to practice it too. You're not going to be happy until we all have your invisible friend.
Yeah, we're coming off of a week where in Ohio this past week they just passed a law that students cannot be.
It hasn't passed yet.
It went
through the House, but not the Senate.
Thank you. Well, it shouldn't have even gotten that far. Right. Let's put it that way. But they're trying to pass laws where students can give factually wrong answers and be okay if it's their religion that gives them those answers. And that's just anti-science. It's anti-progress. It's not going to help anyone. That's only going to set us back from this body of knowledge that we spent.
So I teach at a high school, and I brought this up to a science teacher at lunch on Friday, not realizing he was a young Earth Christian.
A science teacher.
He teaches math. And I just silly me assumed that he would understand the folly in this, and he absolutely believes the Earth is only 6,000 years old.
Yeah. I've got a very close friend. We used to work together years ago, and he has a master's degree, and he believes the Earth is less than 10,000 years old. And I mean, it's a legit master's. It's a real master's degree, and he's a young Earth creationist.
My brother's a master's in physics. He's that way.
Yeah, it's rare, but the point is that from where we're sitting right here in Bedford, Texas, within a mile of us, there are probably 1,000 people who are willing to accept this idea that the Earth is less than 10,000 years old. I don't care about the science. Don't confuse me with the facts. I've already made up my mind.
I think the question that Rendo asked, a lot of the questions this video asked are really, really excellent. But I think what's missing is an atheist answer to those questions. Because I sat down and wrote all the questions that's being asked, and Christianity have an answer for all those questions. But no one presents an alternative answer as coherent as Christianity.
Just ways to say, I don't know.
No. Those answers are questions.
We do know.
I mean, those questions have answers. This is what I agree with his. Why don't you guys do a video
This is where Randy was coming from.
Questions? Yeah. Because I think it kind of, it's not just enough to throw rocks at the building, right? Build a better building.
Well, keep in mind, there's the unspoken initial clause to all these questions. If a loving, caring God exists, why are all these happen?
And the answer most Christians give is we don't know because we don't know God's plan.
But but the other answer is Neil deGrasse Tyson said the universe couldn't care less about what we care about.
Right. Exactly.
I mean, why are babies born deformed? Well, evolution can explain that. It's not a satisfactory answer.
Because it's allowable in the DNA.
That's right, and we ought to come up with some approach to that, because if someone only has a believer's perspective and they see this, they're not asking themselves the unspoken question.
Right.
So and I think in some ways it makes us look like we have given in to them and we're agreeing that this God exists and He created all these things, and we just think He's a jerk for it.
Well, yeah, I mean, we can entertain any notion for the sake of argument.
Yeah,
and I think from the atheist side, we're not operating under a paradigm where any of this stuff is supposed to be prevented. Like there's nothing, there's no initial assertion that anything is supposed to be any particular way. Whereas if you have a loving, caring, all-powerful God,
we would expect to see something else.
Right, and we see the exact opposite, and that's where we start to interpret.
This is the argument that's difficult for people to understand. What Randall is proposing is like the moment you accept that paradigm, you are saying there is a God. You are in effect agreeing like he's just.
I need to bring you with me everywhere I go. You say what I say better than I say.
No, because again, this is where I always go back, because you, in a way, the reason I find this train of thought interesting and I follow it because you guys have amazing questions, but nobody has those amazing answers. And I think this is where a lot of these arguments, again, this video was really hard. When I watched it, I emailed this guy directly. I cried the first time I watched it.
Yeah,
it was really, really hard to watch. And I wanted to know his sources because I'm one of those Christians who need to go deeper, right?
So do you think this is why I understand where you're coming from, is the issue that you don't think that atheists have answers, or that atheists don't have satisfactory answers?
You don't propose answers, for one. You don't propose answers. And a lot of the people who are proposing answers act like jerks, and nobody want to be associated with jerks, right? It's kind of like
much I will grant you.
right, because people used to associate Christians as nice people, and that label still apply a little bit. And until I've been around a lot of atheists or agnostics, most atheists I thought were jerks. People just going off what I saw on YouTube with, Sam Harris and Hitchin and all these people were just like come across as assholes, right? But again, if you go a little deeper, you read more of the thinking and you didn't just go with what they were just saying for 2 seconds. You saw there was more intellectual rigorous to the ideas and there was more facts provided, right? But again, most people, they just seen that little 2-second shot of Sam Harris being a jerk to Muslims. I don't want to be like this guy. I don't want to be in the same club he is. But he's not proposing an alternative idea that's more palatable,
so
more
if
attractive.
If we had a closing to the video, are you trying to raise your hand? Oh.
Jump in.
Oh, okay. 3 things. We have 400 other videos on our channel that explain a lot of stuff. That wasn't the point of this video. If it was a standalone video, this is the only one on our channel, yeah, you'd have a great point. We've been accused of this being an appeal to emotion. We're not making any arguments in here, so it can't be a logical fallacy at all, and there is no appeal to anything because we're not making any arguments. Third thing, I forgot to say it ahead of time, but Chris has 10 minutes, a 10-minute little thing to talk about. So he wants to.
Already long.
No, that's fine. If there's any good points on here, because Chris had prepared this, so. Yeah, it doesn't mean you guys. This is great. This is good too.
The one thing I do want to mention, since you brought up atheists being jerks, that's a really good point.
I'm sorry. No, I'm not.
No, you're not. I'm saying that that's the perspective because the reason I work is to appeal to emotion. No person of even or my mother was saying like this is a hard video to watch. If you really watch it and you believe everything is presented to be true, but it's a hard thing to watch, and that's an appeal to emotion. We all have empathy. No one want to have a child.
No, we don't like that.
No, that's fine because human beings we are driven by emotion. That's one of our main drive. It's okay to poke at it sometimes to get that conversation going and follow up. And when you follow up, propose an alternative theory of life.
Yeah, we're talking about how gruesome this video is and all that, but go to a church on a Sunday morning when they're trying to do a drive to raise money for their mission trip to wherever. They're showing the same stuff.
Right, they're showing the same stuff. So I want to go back to Daniel's point into what Randy said. I've thought about this since then, and even came up in the conversation with my mother. If we had closed the video with, a slide or a brief discussion that said, look, there are 2 ways of looking at the world. If you start off believing that there is a loving God that put all of this here, we think that there's plenty of reasons to reject that premise. On the other hand, if we start off with the idea that there is no deity, that everything in the world is natural, then we can look at what we see and it suddenly makes a lot more sense to us. There is a far more reasonable conclusion to explain all of the things we're looking at that don't require an invisible friend in the sky that loves you.
And we can collectively improve it, make it better.
Right.
That's a video too.
Right. So if you went to the point to end it with, say, video of some little child getting a cochlear implant for the first time,
and no God having to do with that.
No God into it, and both and the tears that flow when they start hearing for the first time. And here recently they cured some kind of blindness for the first time.
Wow. I think I read that.
And I don't remember what.
Nothing infuriates me more is when Christians take credit for something.
Or when
that's why I didn't want to go that route. Because they would, I had a certain vision for this, and I think,
I think this is. I don't think change this at all. But I like to follow.
I'm really excited.
We're changing us scientists are changing things for the good.
Yeah. I'm really excited for 50 years in the future when Christians take credit for the normalization of the LGBT.
Oh they freed the gay people.
As a member of the LGBT community, I'd like to say that I've seen plenty of jerks from behind pulpits all my life. I saw jerks in my own home Baptist church who rang AIDS. as a gift from God to wipe out those evil facts from the pulpit at my First Baptist Church in Guyman, Oklahoma. So there's plenty of jerkism on the part of the Christian. Plus, it's pretty easy to have a so-called coherent answer when your answer is Zeus did it. That's a lazy man's answer. Anybody can say God did it, God did it, God did it. How did God did it? We don't know because God did it.
God of the gaps.
And it's a pretty easy explanation for everything. Lazy man's approach.
Chris, can you? I know you have some saved rounds, and he actually worked to put this together, so I'd like to hear it.
It worked. It's fine. I did want to say one thing. I kind of a caveat to everything we're talking about the discussions we could have with stuff like in this video. We want to be really careful about how and when and where we do it. We don't want to be tragedy vultures, right? We don't want to be circling around a fresh kill looking for opportunities. Well, one of the hardest things in the video for me to watch was the 9/11 footage. I was in the New York suburbs when 9/11 went down, and I was a believer then, and it sickens me to think back of how people were looking at that tragedy like it had a silver lining of how many people it was bringing back to church, and that grosses me out.
The churches were full the next Sunday.
Yeah. And we're supposed to be, we don't want to be going to funerals and looking at mourners and saying, where's your God now? That's not going to help what people already don't like us. We don't need to go and making that worse. But we can take those opportunities to show as atheists we can be loving and compassionate without having a God that instructs us to do that.
It's funny, 9/11 pretty much delayed me from coming out as an atheist by probably a decade. Because I was starting to have those thoughts and maybe I was going to leave the church and all that. Then when it happened, I felt mortal. And I thought that the whole country was going to be under attack. And so we started going back to church. After 9/11, we had kind of faded away for a while. And being me, I said, well, I'm going to be at church. I'm going to join every committee. And I'm going to, and so I got very engaged and very involved for about a 3 or 4 year period there before I realized it was a hollow thing and got out.
Is it weird that the hardest part for me of that was that snow scene, the road that just didn't end, just the hopelessness? Yeah.
Right there.
Yeah.
That's the key. I mean, I fight with a lot of other Christians on the idea, but this is the key thing people don't seem to really appreciate. Because evolution didn't design us for truth, right? We're not designed for truth. We are the survivors of
designed for what? Truth?
We're not designed for truth.
We're designed for anything, technically.
No. I'm trying to get to it. Just give me 2 seconds. Christian, right? We've survived. We are the children of survivors, right? How do they survive? By being fastest, strongest, right? They don't survive by trying to find truth. They survive by fitting to the environment, right? By surviving the environment, right? If I use design as form and function, right? It's not designed as we're designed by whatever, right? As we are the survivors of people that are the fittest to the environment, right? And we're social animals. That hopelessness you just mentioned, that loneliness. That's why a lot of people are still deeply in the darkest section of belief, because it gives them a cohort of people to congregate with, to be with, and that's because that loneliness will make you do some terrible things, like jump on a plane and float into a big thing, because they want to be with similar people that believe similar ideas. What's your theory of life to feel that loneliness with something else that's not so violent and dangerous? Propose that. Trust me, you have a lot more people believing it. I don't know how this was said. That loneliness, I'm telling you, that hopelessness, it is the saddest for a lot of people. People suffering from anxiety attacks, dealing with that loneliness, that hopelessness.
Yeah, that's one of those. That's another universal human issue, and I think that religions are very, very good about providing comfort for people in that regard. And the atheist community, it's not as easy to provide that comfort without appealing to something larger. I know for myself personally, just being able to find a community of people that made me understand that I wasn't alone in the fight, that was a big help to me as I came out of my faith, because for a couple months I felt like I couldn't talk to anyone about what I was going through, and that might not get you all the way there as far as like, you know, finding a higher, greater purpose for your life or something like that, but it's definitely a very helpful thing.
And that's a relatively new development. There even is places for us to go now. You think for centuries, atheists had to exist in silence.
Yeah, I think the atheist community of Austin is the oldest organization I'm aware of, and they're like 20 years old, something like that.
Well, you can go back to Madeleine Murray O'Hare's original community, but it was in Austin and then it moved, and you know the one that's there now formed after she left. But yeah, they're probably the oldest one in Texas. The Church of Free Thought here has been around 25 years.
25, yeah.
Yeah, that's the beauty of the internet, right? You can find all these people, and you can be exposed to these arguments in the first place, and so on and so forth. But, yeah.
Did you have any other things you wanted to cover in your?
I kind of hit the main points. I want to put this out there, so it was kind of brought up already. So you know, we have all this suffering in the world, and we don't have a God to pray to, right? We don't have a book that provides all the answers. Essentially, we got Owen, but Owen's Owen. He's not God. Let's face it.
I am not a deity.
But he is a pilot.
But I do fly airplanes.
He does fly.
I do fly airplanes.
Yeah. So, and I'm coming at this as a relatively recent atheist in the last 5 years. Many of you have been atheists longer, and I've kind of been fortunate that I haven't had any like severe crises during that time. How do you guys deal when you have one of these events that upends your life and shakes your foundations?
You deal.
TJ's grandma, who raised him, this morning he found out that she died, and so I was over at his apartment. I slept over there after a 12-hour recording session. But yeah, I found out early in the morning, and I realized again how completely useless I am as an atheist. I had nothing good to say to him. Everything sounds socially awkward. It's the shittiest situation as an atheist is I cannot find the words. There's no comfort, no solace.
But the standard replies from the Christians don't provide any real comfort either.
Unsatisfactory.
Well, to us.
Yes.
To each other.
It's worse than saying nothing.
Just being with somebody is the best thing you can do to help with grieving. And yeah, that makes all the difference.
When my mother was in her last year of life, she was suffering a lot of physical pain, and she heard something on the Catholic channel tell her that don't waste your suffering, offer it to God, because Catholics have this incredibly warped view that suffering is good and brings you closer to Jesus. And she would pray whenever she was having one of these pain fits, and it made her feel better. So I didn't discourage that at all. I engaged in it.
I thought you were going to plug the Mother Teresa video there for a second. Well, as long as we're talking about it, because I know Carl wants you to plug it.
Yes. So we're already surrounded by so many screaming Christians that my voice really isn't needed.
Is our video on your page? Can I send them there to look at it?
Did I re-upload it? No, it's on Liberal Atheist Comic.
So there's a new guy in the air in a new atheist venue here called the Liberal Atheist Comic. His name is Carl, and he's going to be speaking. He's going to be doing his bit. He's actually a professional comedian. He takes an atheist angle, and he didn't start out that way. He was just he was just trying to find funny stuff, and he found some humor that way. And Jim discovered him a few months ago, and you had him on the Atheist Edge, and he's kind of been engaged with us ever since. And he and I got together and did a video about Mother Teresa.
I just watched it yesterday.
Did you?
Yeah. How about that production quality? That for their first video too. That was
good.
Yeah. So
this is on the Atheist Edge?
No, it's on Liberal Atheist Comic. Liberal Atheist Comic YouTube. Yeah. And they could use all the subscribers they can get, so go and subscribe to that too.
Good. Yeah, we got 200 subscribers in a week,
which is a lot.
And Carl wants 2,000, so he thinks we failed. Like, 200 is great in a week, but we're going to be doing a series of these videos, and we're trying to do them in a humorous way. And he you know, he tries to bring me in as the expert on these things, which is only going to go so far, and then he kind of counterpoints with some humorous approaches to it and all that. But yeah, we did one on Mother Teresa, in which I seem to know a lot about because my mother worshipped Mother Teresa. There was always a picture of Mother Teresa somewhere up in our house. And when Mother Teresa died, I remember, I was still a believer at the time, and I remember having one of these 9/11 kind of moments, believe it or not, when Mother Teresa died, because I thought, well, why would God even keep the world around if Mother Teresa isn't in it? She was probably the only thing he liked about this horrible, wretched world we live in.
Wow.
And those are my initial thoughts. So
and she was wretched.
Yeah, and it turns out she was wretched. She did some horrible things, and I won't do the whole video for you, but Carl did some great research and found stuff I didn't know about her. Yeah, there wasn't a money whore she didn't like. Anybody who would give her money was suddenly worthy of her praise and prayers, including some of the most notorious leaders of her lifetime. You know, Baby Doc Duvalier, who did horrible things to the people of Haiti, was one of her best friends because he gave her lots of money.
He was buying a stairway to heaven.
Yes. Yeah. Well, that's what and that's absolutely how that worked. Is, you know, these guys would make a lot of money doing horrible things.
Indulgences.
They would give some money to her. She would praise them. It was this circle jerk of life.
Standard Catholic indulgences.
Yes.
Or Pope indulgences.
But somehow, one thing we didn't get into the video that I wish we could have is Christopher Hitchens was actually asked by the Vatican to be the devil's advocate.
Oh, there's a video on YouTube on that.
Yes, yeah. And basically they didn't like his response in what he came up with on that, which is why he wrote the book, because he wrote his book about Mother Teresa called Missionary Position, the best titled book ever.
It's a great book too. I mean, he absolutely, pardon the pun, but he absolutely crucifies her.
What people don't realize is
he seriously hitch slaps.
His writing is so good.
That incident ended that 2,000-year-old practice. They no longer have devil's advocates anymore.
Sorry, side note, that's an actual thing in the Catholic
It was
Yes.
Up until then, it was an actual position, and it could be a non-Catholic. It was a hired position in the Vatican.
There was even there was even a movie about it. I thought wasn't there a movie in the 90s or 2000s? No, but there was a movie where a Catholic priest was named a devil's advocate during a canonization, and I'm trying to remember.
In theory, the idea was to get a skeptic, to get someone who wouldn't believe that this is true,
to offer a counterpoint,
and you'd have to convince them.
And this was during Mother Teresa's. They were deciding whether or not she was going to be beatified or sainthood.
All Catholic beatifications for 2,000 years. You know, and lots of people are not.
So this is what
saints, because they couldn't follow the process. Yes, there's a whole process of becoming a saint in the Catholic Church.
So Mother Teresa was her life's work was to become unified.
No,
this was posthumous. Yeah, this was posthumous.
So after you die, the church comes in, and there's a whole process of promoting someone to become a saint, and miracles have to be performed.
Two full miracles.
And you have to, and then there's a devil's advocate who has to come in and examine the whole thing and say, "Yep, it convinced me."
Can one of the miracles be a card trick?
Well, they usually are. They always are. One woman convinced she had cancer, and she put a picture, I think, of Mother Teresa on her, and suddenly the cancer went away. And they said that's good enough. And Christian Church says, "No, it's not. This is ridiculous." And this process started under Pope John Paul.
And the other one was a simple, glorious light that they said came into one of the orphanages. And it was a holy light, and Christopher Hitchens just happened to be there with a photographer that got footage of that as it was happening.
Now, the other thing that was going on along the side here was that the number of Catholic saints had gone way down over the 20th century, which makes a lot of sense, because suddenly we have cameras, we have audio equipment, we have ways to measure things, and so suddenly we can't get anyone through the process. we, as I was Catholic at the time, we couldn't get anyone through there. So the number, which also we interpreted as, we must be coming to the end of times because all the saints have been taken. And they're all up with God. And that's what I convinced my Mother Teresa was the last saint. She's gone. And so instead of filling me with delight, it filled me with fear and dread, which should have been a clue. Why wasn't I excited that it was going to end? But yeah, because of that, Pope John Paul suspended the practice after thousands of years of doing it.
It's crazy.
Interesting.
Any other saved drowns?
Tilden, do you have something you want to?
Yeah, we were talking about people passing away and stuff like that. We had a friend pass away just recently named Hardwick. He told us that he was dying. Never did he say, have pity for me or be sad for me or anything. Came to the meetings all the way to the end. We got to sit with him.
I sat with him on
his
Tuesday.
last week of his life. Never did he say, don't be sad, don't do anything. He didn't say, how did it feel about him passing away.
The last cognizant thing that he said to me when I sat with him on Tuesday, came back on Thursday, he was pretty much out of it. He said, he said, looks like Trump's in trouble. Do you think we're going to get him this time? He was still thinking about the future. That's what amazed him. He knew his life was going to end, but he knew we would go on, politics would go on, and he was still concerned about what was going to happen up there in the future. I was amazed.
He was worried about us having a place to meet. He was worried about his family. He was worried about other stuff.
Do you think that's something to do with him not being a believer?
We were sad about him, and he donated his body to science. He just kept on serving the friends that he had.
So what does that tell us? What's the message there? What does that tell us? My father did the same thing.
What should be our reaction to someone passing away? That was the question.
The last cohesive conversation I had with my father was him.
Lost a friend. Why shouldn't we be sad? Why can't we as atheists be sad for losing a friend?
It's one of the.
We are human beings.
I agree. It's one of the arguments that we make, that Skeptical Texans, Rex and I make in the Five Claims presentation, is that this God belief and this afterlife belief stunts our emotional maturity and denies us the right to go mourn properly.
Exactly. We had Christians asking.
Right.
Why do you mourn?
Right. And so, yeah, this person was important to me. Right. This person was important to me. That bond mattered. I'm going to miss that person. And so what I have to do now as a humanist is connect with my fellow humanists, and we all support each other and work our way through the grief, and we keep going, because life's going to continue. And there is nothing good that comes from Christianity or from any religion at all that can't also come from being a good human being, from being a secular humanist. You can achieve all the same benefits as you can from being an anything religion. There's nothing unique about Christianity in terms of being a good person.
Right.
Don't be an asshole. Right?
From the human standpoint.
Right. And there is, conversely, none of the baggage, none of the drawback. There's no in-group, out-group, there's no tribalism, there's no anti-science. The world would be a better place without religion of any kind. But I would settle for eliminating fundamentalism. If I could just get there, if I could make all Christians like Daniel, I don't think I'd argue with Christians. I'd have to find a different hobby.
I'm not a Christian as far as them, so I'm a heretic. They want to burn me at the stake.
Yeah, someone actually told us that
they do.
He's worse than me.
Yeah,
because I'm an apostate, but he's a heretic.
Well, so you've got Daniel, you've got Dan Martin, you've got Chris Martin, you've got these liberal Christians that are out there in the FBBC. Randy and I spent a lot of time in the FBBC.
Too much.
Right, maybe that's true.
No, we need you guys there. We need you guys there.
Thanks for saying that. So I've said before that liberal Christians would make great secular humanists if they'd only let go. And I've had the fundamentalists come back and say, you're right. Liberal Christians would make great secular humanists. Yes. That's the problem.
Yeah. They hate them. They think you're drawing people away from the faith. They don't think we are. They don't think we're changing anybody's minds, and we're not.
Anytime I mention something anywhere near humanistic or utilitarianist, I'm banned.
Oh yeah.
And then they email me as like, "You doing it again? You're preaching."
I was stunned when he told me how many times he's been.
Oh yeah.
So this is
that's not why I have to be careful what I say.
I'll say this now. I get to see how the sausage is made, and I can't talk much about that. But liberal Christians are moderated far more often on FBBC than the atheists.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely.
Fascinating.
I noticed that the first week I was.
They are very jealous of protecting
the brand.
Christians from heresy.
Yeah.
No, they don't see it. So the brand matters to them. That it really does. But for them, the mission is even more important than the brand. And the brand is just a way to achieve the mission. The mission is everybody needs to be a Calvinist. That's the mission.
Yeah. It's funny. For what it's worth, on my father's deathbed, and he was a devout Catholic, the most important thing to him was that somebody understood how to start the riding mower. Because he was worried that no one would be able to start it.
I gotta love practical.
I know.
Love practical.
That meant the world to him that somebody understood how it started because it's tricky. And that's the last conversation that we had with him before he went into a coma. And I go, wow. And he got it right. He was absolutely on the money.
So I gotta say, I mean, that's just taking a step back from that, thinking about thank you for sharing a personal life. Like, there's a lot of love in that, right? That to care about, like, I've got this thing that I really need to tell you because I know I'm about to check out, and I just need to make sure that you know.
Yeah.
That's
just no words of wisdom, nothing religious, nothing about I see a light or anything like that. Get that mower started. Get out of the backyard.
There was one. Hopefully, it's not a trend, but people watching. I'm going to ask all of you. Did anyone come away from where you know us? If you didn't know us and you watched this, would you think like when Owen said that we're just June bugs on a sidewalk and God is a
kid
with a hammer? Would anyone come away thinking that we're believers after seeing this?
I mean, when I first saw this video, I remember emailing him and I came to a little bit the same question because the way the video is propositioned, you have to accept that there is a God for him to be an asshole.
But it being on Atheist Edge, and the fact that it's atheists doing it,
right? It comes across as former Christians attacking Christianity.
Well, these are all questions that a Christian could ask of their own faith.
Right. I think because a lot of stuff I already knew because I've done my own personal research. I'm one of those people that go deep. Like I said, I've been hanging out with Unitarians and humanists and
lots of heretics.
Right.
Yeah.
for decades now. So they propose a lot of this stuff for me, and they give me books, and I've read a lot of them, and it kind of massaged my belief a lot compared to the way I was coming out of the army. I was fasting for days at a time, and I was praying. Where it's kind of where I am right now, it's more like a theory of life, and the progression continues. Where back to what you guys were saying about staying with someone when they're dying, when there's a sex in the Christian faith, when people are in trauma or dying or in a hospital, they don't mention God in afterlife. The Methodists, because they trained me as a lay minister, and I used to go to hospitals and nursing homes and sit with people. There was no mention of there's a bigger plan, there's a heaven, and you're gonna go there. All they taught us was lay with them and do whatever they asked of you. If they wanted to pray, you pray with them. If they wanted to reminisce and talk, and just listen. And that's all they taught us, just be there like they were saying. Not everybody believing that there's a hell thing. Not every denomination of the faith believes that. So and the lane is the most important thing. Just be there for people when they're in need. And the prayer thing, it's just, I know it has this bad connotation because people are using it for asking a genie for miracles and stuff. A lot of it is just a way to remember with someone, to hope with someone.
Thank you.
It's another form of hoping, but in language and practice. Where and I think a lot of atheists are afraid to show those emotional stuff because they don't want to come across as being like Christians. Like Christians quiet and they hoopla and they pray in it. But I've asked these questions before. If religion was so bad, why did evolutions brought a species that have religion, right? So it seemed to fit a function. It seemed to fit a need. So how do we replace that need?
So it's a good question. I would accept the fact that I would accept the premise that tribalistic behavior and pattern-seeking behavior are both behaviors that would have been advantageous to earlier mammals, right? To proto-humans and even earlier mammals. Pattern seeking is the first thing, right? Our ability to see and recognize and then predict something gives us an advantage over somebody that can't see something and predict what's coming next. Whether it's food, whether it's avoiding a predator, whether it's slipping and falling on a mountain and crashing and breaking your neck, whatever it is, there's a selective advantage to pattern seeking. The other thing is the tribalistic behavior, the in-group, out-group, us versus them. I think that modern religion, certainly as it's practiced in the way we think of it in the modern world, there are a number of really bad evolutionary influences that are leading to bad behavior. Not everything that was beneficial to us when we were proto-humans or earlier mammals, not all of those behaviors are good for us now. The desire to eat sweet foods, not good for us, right? The desire to eat a whole bunch of carbs, not necessarily good for us. The desire to go have sex with thousands of people, not necessarily advantageous, right? There's a lot of behaviors that come from earlier evolutionary influences that aren't good for us now. And I can admit that about a lot of other biological things. And I've also admitted that about religious thinking and religious behaviors. The fact that it might have been beneficial 10 million years ago for proto-humans, humans haven't been around that long, or 5 million years ago or 300,000 years ago, doesn't mean that those are behaviors that are appropriate for me to live by in the modern world. And as a sentient, thinking, conscious, independent moral agent, I'm allowed to choose to live my life in a different way that benefits me. And maybe, if I'm a humanist, also look at other humans and recognize that my behaviors also influence my fellow humans, and choose behaviors that also won't be harmful to my fellow humans, which is why I reject religion altogether. And I encourage everybody else to do the same, unashamedly.
I want to address what Jim asked earlier about does this with this video, does it get the impression that we believe in God? I think it would bolster the argument that we're only atheists because we're mad at God.
I thought that people would be able to see past that. Because now, Owen, remember the 5 of us when we were recording this? It started off, hey guys, just read off this. By the end of it, you, Courtney, all of us.
We were all ad-libbing.
Yeah, we were not just ad-libbing, but our emotions were high.
Yeah.
We were like, give me the microphone. Give me the microphone. I've got another one. I mean, we started. At no point did any of the 5 of us actually entertain the thought that there was a deity still. No. But we were so angry by the end of it.
So, and one of the reasons, and this goes back to the two threads of this that I was talking about earlier. One of the reasons that I think we get angry is because we live in a culture where we are surrounded, even inundated by this idea that the only way you can be a good moral human being is to be a Christian. That you have to accept that there's a loving God out there or something's wrong with you. And I rebel against that. I think it's completely fucking wrong. That's a lie that has been told by countless generations of parents to their children, and it's time to break the damn chain.
I mean,
and I'm happy to do it. And I think this video is helping to achieve that.
The people this video will work best on, because I mentor, I had 3 boys I mentored. They're in college now. And around 17, 18, 19, they had all these questions, because a lot of them will grow up Catholic. They were at that time when they started questioning their parents' belief. And I think that's the audience this video should be aimed at. Because they're ready to rebel. They're ready to question. and understand the world from their own perspective.
You saw the title of, the 20 most common reasons why all this happens?
Right.
But you saw the top of that, right?
Right.
The bullshit reason. We don't find them acceptable.
But not because you...
Right.
There's an assumption...
I put it twice, too, just to punch it in.
That the people, like, I don't know who made the example earlier about their grandmother not caring, because they have not done deep in the Bible like Owen has, or has read all the literatures around all the argument, where on a superficial level, this video come across as anti-God, like I said, from former Christians, right? Attacking God. But the people is most effective way would be the young people who they are ready to attack those notions because they rebelling against their parents. And they're the ones that are ready to pursue their own avenue. One of my best friends, she doesn't call herself an atheist because it doesn't even follow all I'm thinking about it. But she does not go to church. She rejects God. She does not believe in God. And I could see her watching this video and be like, yeah, yeah, because it makes it kind of complete her thinking already because she's already on that stream, right?
You said this made you cry when you first watched it,
right? Because the reason is because I've done my own research, but the way it's packaged, you did a great job on this video.
Thanks.
On our emotion, the way it's packaged, the sequence, the way it flows, the voice, it does something, right? And the people who believe in a perfect world that God created with none of those little flaws, it's gonna change their mind. But those people are hard to get to. The God, they don't associate with. They don't.
Right.
They don't venture outside the nest, right? But the young people who are internet savvy, they're the one on YouTube. They're the one somehow this video need to get to.
Jim, I would volunteer to help you do a sequel to this.
With the cochlear implants, that sounds like a brilliant...
But even more than that...
I don't know if I want it to be a follow-up to this, just to maybe another standalone, not even related to it.
Here's the thing. I'm a world geography teacher, and the conditions we live in now are a gazillion times better than the conditions that human beings lived in during the plague.
Right.
And we can say, look at all these things we have, how much our world is a better place, and none of it had anything to do with your fucking God. It had to do with the development of science. It had to do with societies.
I feel a video coming on. That sounds
Christian answer is going to be.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, they'll tap dance and. Yeah.
Well, to say, and I have these discussions with these Christians all the time who want, we're going to give credit to God because this surgeon knew how to do this surgery. Well, then what about the tens of millions of people who died of the same ailment and happened to be born in the wrong century? God didn't put that knowledge in his head.
You're writing the script for me already. Hold on, let me take you home.
I'm an insulin diabetic. If I was born before 1930, I'm dead.
Yeah, same here.
I'm dead.
And now I'm married to a scientist who works on diabetic.
We gotta write all this down.
You can get a class 1 medical degree.
Oh shit!
But I think that's a perspective. That's a way we can answer this in a positive, upbeat way, and just say our world's a better place, and God had nothing to do with it. It had to do with our ability to accumulate our collective knowledge, and with the common goal of let's make our world a better place.
You guys quit.
There's a book on the topic called Enlightenment Now. It's by Steven Pinker, whatever.
Steven Pinker.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yes,
it's a great book. It's an amazing book. It goes to how human technological innovation has slowly but surely changed the world, where we don't die like we used to die when we were 14 years old.
The most astounding fact he points out in that book is that a human being was 50 times more likely to be killed at the hands of another human being in the 13th century than they are now. The concept that you might die of natural causes was unheard of.
Warfare was a big deal.
You died of a horrible disease or at the hands of another human was what, and so it's just a matter of when is your number going to be up.
His first book, the prequel to that was The Better Angels of Our Nature.
Yeah.
And that was also an extraordinary book. Yeah. Bill Gates has said publicly that The Better Angels of Our Nature is his favorite book ever.
Is that right?
Yeah.
But I would make it a sequel to this. I think we ought to piggyback off of this.
Big fan of Steven Pinker, by the way.
Oh yeah,
Angels of Our Nature.
The title's a little misleading. But he get a lot of pushback from Christians because of that.
Yeah.
Because he's a humanist. He believes that we have everything we need to make this world a better place.
Why, right. He asks the question, why has violence declined over history? You go back 2,000 years and you look at violence and it has declined. And he demonstrates that pretty clearly. Then he examines reasons why violence has declined. Could it be this? Could it be that? Could it be that? One of the first things he dispenses with is, could Christianity have caused violence to decline? The answer is nope, it absolutely did not. Yeah. And he can prove it. There are other reasons for it.
Right, and I can use all those sources for the next video.
Yeah.
Answering the question.
This one took 3 months, so yeah. I mean, this is a great brainstorming session, but yeah, yeah, that sounds great. But this one, there's only one other video that took longer than this. This was a, and it barely got 1,000 views on YouTube. We spend the most. There's an inverse proportionality to how much time we spend on a video. Anyway.
Well, guys, it's 7 o'clock, so I think we'll go ahead and officially.